Niles and Matilda's love story from Ghana to Ido. You ever watch a 90-day fiancé couple and think, this can't be real life, right? Because when I saw Niles and Matilda step off that plane in Ghana, I didn't see a love story. I saw a ticking time bomb disguised as a honeymoon. And let me tell you, when that explosion finally hit, it wasn't just emotional, it was generational. Because what went down between them and Matilda's family didn't just destroy a relationship, it exposed the forbidden truth about what happens when love meets loyalty, and nobody's ready for the fallout. I'll be real with you, I've seen chaos on this show before. I survived the Big Id saga. I lived through Gino and Jasmine's never-ending emotional roller coaster. But Niles and Matilda, they brought something different. It wasn't just drama. It was this uncomfortable mix of guilt, heritage, and manipulation all wrapped up in one painfully polite smile. And here's the thing. The moment Matilda started crying in that market scene, saying, "You don't understand my culture," I knew we were entering dangerous territory. Because Niles wasn't just meeting her family, he was meeting her past, her pride, and the version of herself she left behind. So, what actually happened in Ghana? Why did a man who once said, "I'll follow you anywhere," suddenly look like he couldn't wait to get back to the airport? And what secret did Matilda's family reveal that changed everything between them? Let's go deep, because this story, it's not just about love. It's about what happens when two worlds collide and one person refuses to yield. At first glance, Niles looked like every calm, collected 90-day partner, the good guy, the listener, the one who'd say, "I just want her to be happy." But then you start noticing the little things, the tight smiles, the silent frustration, the moments when he looked at the camera and his eyes screamed, "Get me out of here." Yeah, that's when you realize, this wasn't a love trip. It was a test, and not the kind of test you study for, the kind that rips you apart just to see what's left. See, Matilda wanted to show Niles her roots, her home, her people. But what she didn't expect was for her family to test him. Because when her mother said, "A man who doesn't understand our traditions doesn't deserve our daughter," that wasn't a welcome speech. That was a warning, and Niles didn't pass. Now, before I go further, let's be honest, 90-Day Fiancé thrives on this kind of tension. Meet the Family arc has destroyed more couples than Distance ever could. But this one, it hit different. Because it wasn't just culture clash, it was ego versus expectation. And it's time to face the real question. Did Matilda bring Niles to Ghana to prove something to her family, or to punish him? Because there's a subtle, unspoken rule on this show. When one partner feels unheard in America, they take the other home, where suddenly they hold the power. That's exactly what happened here. Matilda went from pleading for Niles' understanding to saying, "You're in my world now." And the second she said that, I knew we were done pretending this was a vacation. Now, let's talk about that dinner scene. The infamous moment when Niles tried to offer a toast and Matilda's uncle interrupted, saying, "A man should not speak until he's invited to." You could feel Niles' soul leave his body in that second. But the thing is, that moment wasn't just awkward TV. It was symbolic, because it showed exactly what happens when love crosses into territory ruled by pride and tradition, and neither side wants to give ground. Niles didn't understand the customs, sure, but Matilda didn't prepare him either, and that's where the forbidden knowledge comes in. The truth nobody on this show says out loud. Love isn't destroyed by distance, it's destroyed by silence. And in that moment, they weren't speaking the same language anymore, emotionally or culturally. And honestly, I can't even blame one of them completely, because Matilda was caught between pleasing her family and protecting her relationship, and that's a lose-lose game. But here's where she made her biggest mistake. She thought Niles would just endure everything in silence. He didn't. When Niles said, "I feel like you wanted me to fail here," that wasn't a cry for sympathy. It was an accusation, and it hit hard. Because deep down, I think he was right. Matilda's family didn't want approval. They wanted control. And when Niles didn't bow to that, well, that's when the real cracks started to show. But I've got to ask, would you survive that dinner? Drop a comment below if your partner's family publicly humiliated you in their home country. Would you stay quiet or walk out? Because that's the kind of raw emotional line that separates these couples. The TV strong from the real world done. Now, before we uncover what really happened that night, I just want to say, if you're obsessed with breaking down the secrets TLC doesn't want you to notice, hit subscribe to break down Epic right now. Because here we don't just recap the drama, we decode it. Back to Ghana. Night fell, the cameras kept rolling and Niles sat outside alone. The look on his face said it all. He wasn't angry anymore, he was done. And that's when Matilda came out teary-eyed, saying, "I didn't mean for it to go this way." But Niles didn't even look at her. He said one line that changed everything. "Then why does it always go this way?" That line, that single question, it's what every crumbling couple on this show eventually faces. Because it's never about one fight. It's about a pattern. And their pattern was emotional sabotage disguised as communication. Here's the secret nobody wants to admit. Sometimes people bring you home not to celebrate you, but to expose you. And that's exactly what Matilda did. She wanted to prove to her family that she made the right choice. But when they questioned Niles, she froze. She didn't defend him. She watched. And in that silence, the relationship ended before anyone realized it. And if you think that's dramatic, wait until you hear what her cousin whispered off camera. A truth that turned their already broken trip into a complete collapse. But that, my friends, is where it gets dark, because what her cousin revealed wasn't just gossip. It was the forbidden secret behind why Matilda's mother never trusted Niles to begin with. So here's what Matilda's cousin said, and it changes everything. He pulled Niles aside when the cameras were supposedly packing up, and with this look that could melt steel, he said, "You remind her mother of someone, and that's why she'll never accept you." That line alone could have been brushed off as jealousy or protectiveness. But Niles didn't stop there. He asked, "Who?" And the cousin told him the name. It was Matilda's father, the father who left when she was 12, the man her mother swore she'd never forgive. And apparently Niles looked just like him. Let that sink in, because suddenly, the entire trip made sense. The tension, the coldness, the subtle shade hidden under tradition. It wasn't just about culture, it was projection. Matilda's mother wasn't testing Niles, she was punishing a ghost. And that right there is the forbidden truth behind their entire Ghana trip. They were never fighting each other, they were fighting the past. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know I always say TLC doesn't show you the whole story, they show you the edit that hurts the most. But this time, I think the pain was real. Because when you rewatch that dinner, knowing what her cousin said, you see the patterns. Matilda's mom flinches when Niles speaks. She won't look him in the eye. She calls him by her ex's nickname, Nee, twice. And when Matilda tries to laugh it off, she's not embarrassed. She's terrified. That's when it hit me. This isn't just relationship drama. It's generational trauma on full display. A woman torn between her family's ghosts and her future, trying to love someone who looks like her pain. But here's the kicker. And this part, TLC didn't air in full. Niles confronted Matilda that night after hearing the truth. And instead of denying it, she said, "That's why I wanted you to meet them. So they could see you're not him." Let me repeat that. She didn't bring him to be accepted. She brought him to be redeemed. That's not love. That's emotional labor disguised as destiny. And that's when Niles realized he was never there to be loved for who he was. He was there to prove who he wasn't. You ever had someone love you for the version of you that fixes their pain? Not the real you. Yeah. That's the kind of love that drains your soul in silence. And Niles, the guy who used to smile through every awkward moment, finally broke. He told Matilda, "I can't compete with your ghosts." And honestly, that was the most honest thing he's ever said on camera. He didn't yell. He didn't storm off. He just left the room. And that silence said more than any argument ever could. Now here's where it gets eerie. After that night, the crew said Niles didn't show up to filming for 2 days. No calls, no texts. When he finally came back, he had his bags packed. Matilda tried to say it was just a cool down. But let's be real. When a man checks out emotionally, the relationship's already over. And when he looked into the lens and said, "Sometimes love is just a reflection of the person you were hoping to save," that's when fans knew he was done being her mirror. Let me ask you something. Would you stay in a relationship where love feels like an apology for someone else's past? Or would you walk away before you lose yourself in the process? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know where you stand on this one. Because honestly, I can't decide whether to feel sorry for Matilda or furious that she let her family rewrite her love story. And it gets even wilder. Because after filming Wrapped, Matilda posted this cryptic story on Instagram, a photo of her childhood home. Caption: "Sometimes healing means losing people you thought you needed." Fans thought it was shade. But if you've been watching 90 Day long enough, you know. When someone posts something poetic after a breakup, it's always hiding something messy. And sure enough, a week later Niles went live. He didn't badmouth her. Didn't spill tea. He just said, "I learned that love isn't about being understood. It's about being seen." And that, right there, was the final goodbye. You know what's crazy though? This isn't even the first time 90 Day has hidden a story like this behind clever editing. Remember when Karine and Paul's Brazil fight was edited to look like drama, but it was actually about family disapproval and unresolved trauma? It's the same pattern. TLC gives us entertainment, but beneath that, there's a real psychological unraveling. And honestly, I can't help but feel like Niles and Matilda never stood a chance. Because you can't build a future when the past keeps calling the shots. Now, if you're still here, first of all, you're my people. You're the ones who look past the memes and the chaos to find the truth under the drama. So let's test that theory together. If TLC dropped an uncut version of Niles and Matilda's Ghana trip, would you watch it? I'm talking full conversations, unedited confrontations, real family dynamics. The raw version that would probably never make TV, because I feel like that footage would expose everything. Who was manipulating who, and how deep that family resentment really went. Comment, UNCUT, if you'd watch it. I want to see how many of you want the real story, not the highlight reel. And here's the craziest, what if, moment of them all, what if Niles actually did pass the family's test, but they couldn't handle it? Because think about it. The entire trip was built around proving he wasn't the ghost of Matilda's father. But what if, by being patient, composed, and genuine, he reminded them too much of the man he was before he left? Maybe he didn't fail their test. Maybe he passed it too well. and that scared them. That's the kind of forbidden theory TLC would never admit to, but you can see it in the edit. Every look, every hesitation, every moment that felt off. It's not bad acting. It's emotional history being triggered on camera. And now that we've cracked it open, you can't unsee it. Matilda's tears weren't just heartbreak. They were generational grief spilling out in real time. Her mother's hostility wasn't control, it was unresolved abandonment, and Niles, he was just the unlucky mirror that made everyone face it. That's not reality TV. That's therapy broadcast to millions without anyone realizing it. So yeah, laugh at the memes, make the jokes, call it another TLC disaster. But deep down, this was one of the rawest emotional implosions in 90 Day Fiancé history. And if you ask me, no one was the villain here. They were all victims of unhealed stories. But that's what makes this franchise so haunting. Because every funny couple moment is just trauma waiting to resurface. And sometimes love stories don't end with closure. They just fade into silence. And before you go, I've got a challenge for you. If you've ever stayed in a relationship that looked fine from the outside, but felt like emotional quicksand underneath, drop a single in the comments. Let's see how many of us have lived through that hidden version of love that TV never fully shows. Because that's what Breakdown Epic is about. Peeling back the edits, the smiles, the fake happy endings, and uncovering what really went down behind the camera. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe, not for me but for you. Because once you see the hidden side of these stories, you'll never watch reality TV the same way again. And that's it for this one, guys. Sophia here signing off before TLC sues me for too much truth. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, in the world of 90 Day Fiancé, the biggest plot twists never happen on screen. See you in the next breakdown.